what's up? It's Cinema Shogun here, and yesterday word on the streets was that a team of private investigators was working for Bryan Kohberger, or at least working on behalf of Bryan Kohberger to prove that he was innocent. Now, I saw this news, I saw this information, I saw talks of it, but it was not officially confirmed, so I did not want to report on it, but now it has been officially confirmed that a team of private investigators is working diligently to try to prove that Bryan did not do this. In fact, Bryan Kohberger's court-appointed lawyer sent a defensive team of private investigators to the crime scene, and they've been going through it for a while now. Now, I'm going to get into more of the official information, but I just got to go on a little rant. Since when did you get this type of legal defense for free? Since when did court-appointed lawyers get private investigators to try to prove that you were innocent? Now, I understand that where Bryan is going, they don't necessarily have public defenders. So these are actual lawyers that are going to be defending Bryan, but I don't see things like this often. I understand that a lot of you look into cases and you look into true crime and you may have seen something like this before. I'm not saying that this is impossible or this has never happened. But everyday run-of-the-mill people usually don't have this good of a legal defense for free. You know, your average person isn't going to walk into court and your public defender is like, hey, we're going to get a team of private investigators to just, to really get to the bottom of this. Like, that doesn't happen to your average person. In fact, public defenders, I know some people will get angry by this, but I'm just going to be honest. Public defenders half the time aren't really necessarily working for you. And, I mean, they usually don't go this hard for you. But this is the world that we live in. I feel like people who do crazy evil things to people and people who do weird things to children, they get some of the best legal defenses there is. And they get catered to. Meanwhile, your everyday average person who may have made a mistake, they get drugged through their legal system relentlessly. I see it happen time and time again. Your everyday average person who maybe made a small mistake, maybe even didn't, they get dragged through the legal system. Meanwhile, people like Bryan Kohberger, people who have islands where they do weird things to young women, they get the best legal defenses you could possibly imagine, and they don't get held to the same standard. The jail where Bryan is being held, they're more worried about catering to his vegan meals than they are about the fact that maybe he did something horrible to 4 people. But let's go ahead and dive right into this article so we can get some more information about what is going on here. Investigators hired by Bryan Kohberger's defense team arrived Tuesday at the home where he's accused of fatally unaliving 4 University of Idaho students. It has been reported that 3 men and 2 women arrived at the King Road house at about noon Eastern Time, and spent 45 minutes taking video inside and outside of the property. 4 of the investigators left after touring the home on Tuesday, while a crime scene reconstruction analyst remained. An Idaho State Police trooper accompanied the group. The Idaho lawyer who is representing the accused unaliver hasn't been publicly identified, although now we do know who it is. The fact that Bryan Kohberger's attorney has brought in private investigators to go throughout this crime scene leads me to believe that he is definitely going to mount a strong defense. And that's facts, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are gearing up to see something the likes of which many of us have never seen before. I don't think this is going to be your average case. You know, there's been a lot of talks of Bryan's education. Did Bryan go to school to learn how to commit a better crime? Did Bryan go to school to figure out how he could do something like this to someone? Did Bryan go to school to learn information on how to better elude law enforcement, to better get away from a scene of a crime without leaving behind any evidence? But maybe Bryan wasn't necessarily focused on those aspects. Maybe Bryan's studies and maybe Bryan's education was more so for this moment, for when he ultimately arrives in court for doing something that I guess he couldn't control himself and stop himself from doing. There's been a lot of talk of, you know, Bryan going to school and he's conducting these surveys to try to figure out how he could do something like this to someone and then get away from the scene. How he could do something like this to someone and elude arrest so he could still walk the streets a free man. But maybe a lot of this education, maybe a lot of this studying, maybe all of these, you know, all of this time in school was for this moment, just in case he ever did get caught. I don't think Bryan's a stupid guy. We've heard plenty of accounts from plenty of people that he was dedicated to his education and to his studies. We know that some teachers said that he was one of the best, brightest students she's ever seen. I don't think this guy's an idiot. But also, I'm not going to sit here and say this guy's a genius. I made the point on previous videos that often we make the mistake of assuming that these people are smarter than what they really are. But I think in this case, Bryan is at least somewhat prepared, or more prepared than the average person, of course, for this type of situation. And seeing that there's a team of private investigators out here trying to mount up a good legal defense for Bryan, I think we're in for one hell of a case. And there's a lot of people out there right now that are floating around the idea that Bryan may be innocent. Now, I don't think that Bryan's innocent at all. But will law enforcement be able to prove without a shot of a doubt that Bryan did this? And they do not have the tool that was used to commit this act either. So there are key pieces of evidence that, at least to our knowledge at this moment, are still missing. But there's reports of, you know, they use DNA to track Bryan or to tie Bryan to this situation. Bryan's driving the same vehicle that people said they saw leaving from around the scene of the crime. So there's a lot of things to tie Bryan to this. But like I said, there are key pieces of evidence that are, at this time, from what we know, still missing. So this is going to be one hell of a case, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't going to be just, you know, and it's over. I think, and if Bryan remains as cool, calm, and collected as he has been, and he doesn't say a word, and he maintains his innocence, and works alongside this free lawyer who seems to be doing a hell of a job for him already, no telling what could happen. But at least now we know the real reason why they stopped cleaning the house the other day, because when it was announced that an arrest had been made and they had Bryan Kohberger, we knew that they started going in and they started cleaning up the house, or they were about to, and then they abruptly stopped because of some court order. This is why. Because the wheels were already in motion. So now I'm interested in, not only, it's like, things are getting kind of crazy, because not only are all of us wanting to know, like, what did investigators find inside that house? what did investigators find to lead them to believe that Bryan did this? You know, we all want those details, but now it's like, what did the private investigators find to prove that Bryan didn't do this? You know what I mean? So I'm interested in seeing both of these evidence from both sides presented in court. And, you know, I'm ready to see them battle it out. I believe that law enforcement has the right guy. But it doesn't matter if they have the right guy. They have to prove that they have the right guy. And now we see that, like, when I heard that Bryan was just going to have a public defender, I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, open and shut case. Let's go ahead and move on. But now I'm like, hell, they're really trying to fight for this dude. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Hopefully justice is served. But whenever more updates come in, I will let you all know on this channel and on my other channel, Fat and Opinionated. Let me know your opinions, though, right now down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I will talk to you all in the next video.